What it do? Welcome to another new episode of Locked On Bucks. On today's show, the Bucks beat the Pacers 140 to 126 behind 64 points from Giannis. 64 points. That is a new career high. That is a new franchise single game scoring record. And that is also the NBA season high so far this season. We're going to break down the career performance from Giannis in addition to talking about some changes that we saw between this game against the Pacers and the last two that we've seen. All that and more coming up on this celebratory episode of Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis. You can catch me weekly on the Technical Foul Podcast, as well as Cheesehead TV's Carry the G and MKE. Joining me is longtime voice of the pod, founder of BrewHoop.com, and one of the biggest Giannis stands you're going to meet, Frank Madden. We appreciate you for tuning in, and thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. We're also available on YouTube. Today's episode was brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Frank, as I mentioned, our boy Giannis Antetokounmpo, he scored 64 points tonight. That is a new career high, franchise single game scoring record. Like I mentioned, the man had 13 in the first quarter, 8 in the second quarter, 17 in the third quarter, and then 26 in the fourth quarter. A fourth quarter, mind you, where he had 58, was taken out of the game. But then the Pacers cut the lead back down to 10, and then he had to re-enter the game, and then he was able to drop 64 points. What are your thoughts? How are you feeling tonight, Frank?
Well, shout out to you, Camille. I'm traveling for work. I'm in California right now. It's super late where you are. It's almost midnight in Milwaukee. You stayed up. You could have said, I'm just going to do a, solo pod. That would have been totally fine. You had, you had to bring in the technical foul, backup, next man up, tap the bullpen the other night. You guys did a great job. I appreciated the shout out, by the way, about Giannis's free throw shooting. I definitely did appreciate the Giannis free throw shooting the other night. But yeah, this was one worth staying up for. And we don't say it that often, but I think we've said it once or twice this year. Like, these are the games why we podcast every day. These are the reasons why I still love podcasting after every Bucks game. We've had a lot of frustrating games, even frustrating wins at time this year. I didn't necessarily miss podcasting about that Bulls game because winning in overtime against the Bulls is not really what you want at the end of the day. But I mean, top to bottom, look, this game, you're paying the Pacers, a team that's beaten you twice, a team that, is a funhouse mirror offense, right? Like you can't judge your defense when you play the Pacers just because they're so good. They space you out so well. They play so fast. They exploit your weaknesses so well with everything that Tyrese Halliburton and company are doing. Any win will do at home against the Indiana Pacers. That's, I think, the level that the Pacers have gotten to, especially after having beaten the Bucks already twice this year. So the one constant against the Pacers and pretty much everybody else has been Giannis Antetokounmpo, and
Absolutely.
Just the consistency that he's had night to night. I mean, we've talked a lot about Dame and what he's been able to do from a clutch scoring perspective. I mean, he's obviously had a huge role in kind of pushing the Bucks over the edge in terms of winning a lot of close games and a lot of these toss-up games, which is a big reason why they have the record that they have. But this whole season's been just an affirmation that Giannis, everything starts with Giannis. He's the foundation. Ever since that Boston game, I mean, he's had a great year. He was having a great year before that. The Boston game obviously was a letdown. He's been just electric. The night-to-night consistency since then has been incredible. The shooting percentages, I think the patience, the willingness to attack and play to his strengths. He did take 3 threes tonight. I think we can forgive that. But I mean, you look at his shot chart, the 3 threes, and he took one shot that was technically they charted as being just outside the restricted area. Everything else inside the restricted area, 20 of 24. in the restricted area. And, I like that this comes against a good team. We know the Pacers have no hope of defending Giannis. We've seen that, time and time again, right? He's got, what did he have? 37, I think, in the yesterday. He had 91 points in 2 games before this one. He has 155 points in 3 games against the Pacers. Quick math, Camille, that's almost 52 points per game. He's averaging almost 52 points per game against the Pacers this year. And granted, the Pacers obviously not a good defensive team, but this is a very good team. Yeah. So to put up 64 on, any team, right? Any team of 5 dudes that can fog a mirror, that's saying something, right? This wasn't Marjan putting up 80 or whatever, in a pro-am game, right? This is an NBA game, and not just, him scoring that many points, which is still just crazy to look at, but to do it in just the dominating fashion he did. I mean, what he did to Miles Turner, what he's done to Miles Turner, I mean, this is one of the best rim protectors in the league, and all Giannis sees when he looks at Miles Turner is food. I mean, his ability to bully Miles Turner has been just off the charts, so impressive. And, we saw him get out in transition tonight. We saw him do it in half court, that beautiful pick and roll spin from Dame for the dunk that we saw, and the free throw shooting again tonight, 24-32. Most he's had across any, I didn't look it up, but I'm pretty sure that's career highs all across the board.
It definitely is a career high for him.
Yeah. So, and 6 out of 8, that's 75%. So, hey, we'll take it. He's been shooting better from the line lately as well. So, yeah, I mean, this is a celebration of Giannis. And remember when people were kind of like, oh, like, yeah, you got surgery over the summer. Like, we'll see if that kind of has, what that means. His kind of in between games has been better this year. It's been kind of closer to what it used to be a couple years ago after disappointing last year. But man, he's just so sensational going to the basket, and the skill level he has going left, going right, just again attacking big guys, small guys. Oh, Aaron Nesmith. Okay, yeah, like yes, you can kind of get into Giannis's body and make it a little hard, whatever, right? And fittingly, I mean, this game turned when Giannis was basically out there alone with some of the young dudes, including Marjan and Andre Jackson Jr., who we should talk about at some point in this podcast. But that really turned the tide on the game, right? I mean, the Pacers got out to a fast start. I think it was 14-6, and Giannis kind of was out there with the young dudes. And, especially earlier, we talked about like complaining about Giannis, like kind of just high pick and roll. Like, is that really the way to, kind of run an offense? But he was great. He was special. I mean, he carried that offense. They went on a big run. The young guys' energy, I think, on both ends helped, and really just kind of teed up a win that wasn't wire to wire, but they were playing from the front really for 3 quarters, and you beat this Pacers team by double digits. That's super impressive. I think a good bounce back game after a pretty underwhelming win against the Bulls, and yeah, I mean, we could talk for 2 hours about just how incredible it is what Giannis does night in and night out. And again, just remember this night, people. If you were lucky enough to be in the building, save the ticket. Hope you took pictures. We'll be watching YouTube clips of this one probably for a while because the dude is just special, and the way he does it is incredible. Not like anybody else that we've seen in this league. And yeah, just savor every minute of it. He just turned 29, got plenty more good years left, signed the extension. Lots to feel good about if you're a Bucks fan, even with, again, some of the ups and downs of this season so far. But at the end of the day, we get to tune in and watch Giannis play every game, and that's something to be thankful for.
Absolutely. And I would hope that with this game, I mean, it's still early in the season, so I understand some people aren't even caring about what the MVP ladders are looking like. But throughout the season so far, Giannis has not been getting a lot of love on the MVP ladder boards and who are the early favorites for MVP. And Justin and I talked about it during yesterday's show, but Giannis has been scoring at a crazy clip this year, super efficient. And on top of that, now with the 64-point performance, there have been 5 different 50-point games in the NBA this season, and Giannis has 2 of those. This is his 3rd career game against the Pacers with at least 50 points. He only has 8 career regular season games of scoring at least 50. 3 of them now are against the Pacers. He is the 5th player in NBA history to score at least 60 points on at least 70% field goal percentage. With that, he joins Wilt Chamberlain, who did it 4 times. 4 times Wilt did that. Again, whenever you hear your name associated with Wilt, it's good company. Also, who has done this? Karl Malone, David Thompson, and ironically enough, Damian Lillard, who was the last player to do it. And before we get out of this segment and zoom out and take a look at some of the differences we saw in this matchup and the past Pacers matchup, I do want to give Dame some love as well. He entered to the top 5 all-time of made threes in NBA history, his career. He tied and passed Kyle Korver for that record to get that 5th spot outright on his own. So we got to shout out Dame as well on a night where Giannis is going to get a lot of the shine as he deserves to, but let's give some respect to Dame as well. And of course, want to talk more about this game, the win, what we saw different against the Pacers right after we talk a little bit more about our friends from FanDuel. Man, Frank, you mentioned that it's late. It's late, and I'm over here geeked up right now. So I've mentioned it before, but people say the NBA season doesn't begin until Christmas, and I don't get how you can feel that way after you see a game like this. But hey, whatever the case may be, I say as well the NFL season doesn't start until after Thanksgiving. We are now after that mark. Every game is super intense. Playoff position is at stake, and FanDuel is the right place to be to make those big-time game vibes come together with a big-time offer for you. So right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. Again, $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, trust me when I tell you, there is no better time than now to try it out. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and even more than that. So make sure you visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get in on the action. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Truly appreciate everyone who tunes in to Locked On Bucks, especially those who do so on a daily basis. So shout out to all of those everydayers. If you enjoy what we do here on Locked On Bucks, I want to put you on something else that you really might enjoy. Locked On has launched the first ever national 24/7 sports streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you with 24/7 coverage of all the top sports stories of the day. It's brought to you by all the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Now, Frank, I mentioned, want to take a look at the game as a whole because we could spend a whole episode talking about Giannis if we so desired. But let's take a look at this Pacers game a little bit more in depth because hey, the Bucks finally got their lick back. We've lost to the Pacers 2 times already this season. And I think, honestly, having seen the Pacers so many times already, 3 times in almost a month, a little bit over a month, especially with that in-season tournament money, that whole thing that was added into there as well. This game was kind of juiced up. You saw the players with a very physical game, a chippy game. There were 8 techs called in this game in total. We saw Bobby Portis get tossed out. We saw Obi foul out. We saw the Nationals have to get restrained by Jay Crowder. Like he was looking like he was fighting for his life to get on the court after that hard foul that Nesmith had on Giannis. But the energy of this game was so different. It felt more like something that you might see in April rather than a random Wednesday in December.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great, when you have like new rivals, right? New rivalries. I think last year, the year before, right? I mean, you never would have looked at the Pacers and said like, oh, that's one of the Bucks, real rivals. But, huge credit to Indiana and Rick Carlisle and Halliburton. Like they've elevated their profile and, you beat the Bucks twice. Obviously the first one, Dame doesn't play, it's at home. Giannis goes for 54 and they kind of pulled it out. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the upsides of the in-season tournament, right? It adds a little bit of familiarity that otherwise you wouldn't have. The Pacers and Bucks are going to play 5 times this year because of that extra game, and the congestion in the calendar means that they're seeing each other right after a game in which, as he's alluded to, there's a little bit of trash talking.
Yep.
Tyrese tapped the wrist, did the Dame celebration after he had that big shot. I thought Dame handled it well after the game. Basically was like, if you dish it out, you got to be ready to take it. And tone was set early in this game, right? Halliburton, kind of, I forget if it was after his dunk or what it was, but Giannis kind of gives him a little forearm shiver as he's running forward, and Halliburton kind of flops on the floor like a dead fish. So that kind of set a little, that kind of started to set the tone, right? You started to feel like, okay, there's no love lost between these teams. And, Halliburton had a couple really nice dunks, got Marjan on one, got Ajax on another, let the Bucks bench, let those dudes know about it. And that was kind of, again, kind of, you could tell something was brewing this game. And especially then when, the Bucks start to build a big lead, Giannis is just embarrassing them, again. That's the kind of situation where stuff can start to boil over. So you get the hard foul, and Bobby, I don't know. I mean, it's just like Bobby's just like whatever, right? I mean, again, one of the things that, we can obviously talk about Bobby and some of his limitations defensively, and he's had some struggles of late. You guys talked about the other night. He was really good, in the previous game, gave them a much needed kind of boost scoring wise against the Bulls. And tonight, 19 points before he gets ejected. I thought he did it again tonight. So that's what you want, right? I mean, regardless of what's kind of happening behind the scenes, like you want guys to kind of respond in the right way. And Bobby kind of did what kind of Bobby does, right? And I mean that in, in more of a good way in this respect. So, I think the kind of tension is generally, like, I think it adds to the intrigue. And obviously on a night where the Bucks kind of hit back and get some revenge, and Giannis gets to, deservedly take his place atop the all-time record books for single game scoring. Shout out to Michael Redd, but come on, Michael, like, this was Giannis's record to have, right? He had to get it. And I'm glad Giannis didn't just barely break it, right? I'm glad that he was able to put the exclamation point on. And I'd be lying to you, Camille, if I wasn't actually, happy that the Pacers kind of cut back into that lead enough to kind of bring him back into the game. As someone who, as you said, I stand for Giannis's stats. I obsess over them. I love kind of looking at just the incredible things he does in terms of the historical context. And so, not the first time that a huge lead I've been like, maybe if the other team cuts in that lead a little bit, and I got to bring Giannis. I wouldn't hate it. So yeah, that's what we got to see. And, that's, again, just another layer of intrigue. And this whole game ball controversy, right? Which,
game ball
just kind of add game ball gate, adds another kind of layer of intrigue. I'd say this one is definitely less annoying than the ladder gate, because mainly I think just the Pacers for those who didn't see, so the Pacers took the game ball and claimed that it was because Oscar Tshiebwe, is that how his name's pronounced? The former Kentucky guy or Kansas guy, whatever he is, Kentucky guy, I think. Supposedly because he scored his first points, they wanted the game ball to commemorate that. Yeah, guys, like the Bucks didn't want nothing important happened on the Bucks side, right? Like no significant event. Like, fuck out of here, man. I mean, like, that's just like so stupid. And I mean, after the game, Rick Carlisle was like, there's two balls, like, no need to, could have been handled differently. But he was probably also I'm not sure how much of that was his own team he was thinking about versus thinking about the Bucks coming into the tunnel and agitating, and what there's, who was it, some coach or somebody claims that they got like elbowed or
the GM.
The GM, okay, yeah, Chad Callahan got elbowed. Like, man, you know what? Fuck around and find out, right? So I have no love lost. You try to take the game ball from a dude that just scored 64 points. You get what you pay for. So yeah, you know what? Fun, no strings attached tonight, Camille. Fun game, fun win, incredible performance from Giannis, and he's up to 32 points a game on 66% true shooting right now. I mean, he's at the point where I don't know that his true shooting can go up much more, because it's already so goddamn high. And I mean, there's a lot of guys having awesome seasons, especially offensively in the league right now. But I mean, he's just been unbelievable. And again, I thought, it's funny. We thought like, oh, with Dame, the pick and roll, like this is really gonna, help Giannis be more efficient. And it's like he's gotten more efficient, but it's not really been the way that we thought. It's not because he's just getting like layups and dunks off pick and rolls with Dame. So I think you just got to give him a ton of credit. He's refined some of the aspects of his game, like those little in between shots. But man, just the relentlessness, the way he attacks, and the skill that it takes to do that. I always point on it, but there is no 7 foot, 250-pound dude in the history of the sport that can handle the ball, whether it's open floor, whether it's in the half court, like he does. I mean, I'm going to look up what he's got as a pick and roll ball handler this year. I mean, he's been ridiculously efficient. Gets those little kind of inverted screens, even without Pat Connaughton flipping those screens, as Pat is so good at doing. He's just been incredible at just finding those the cracks in the defense, and to do that at his size, to be able to finish the way he does, it's remarkable. And again, that whatever casuals are going to take some of that for granted or be bitter about it, but you just can't take anything away from him to be scoring the way he's scoring, and to be manufacturing so much of this on his own is just an incredible thing to watch. So once again, just I'll praise Giannis. We are all worship at the altar of in the church of the freak, Camille. So enjoy this, and we will not forget this one for sure.
To wrap up game ball gate, after the game, Giannis was asked about it, like, do you actually have the game ball now? Because it was cleared up that, hey, we saw a Buck security guard take the game ball, and we know there's two, and the Pacers were claiming they had the second game ball to give to their player, their rookie who scored his first point, although he had his first true basketball point in the NBA in the in-season tournament final, but that doesn't count, so whatever. So Giannis is asked about it, and he's like, you know what? I don't even know if I have the real game ball at this point. Like, it doesn't really feel like the game ball to me. It feels like a brand new game ball. Like, I played 35 minutes or whatever it is tonight. I'm not sure if this is the ball, but it's whatever. I'm going to give it to my mom. It's all right. He did mention that he does not have the game ball from Game 6 of the NBA Finals, which bothered him. So that was interesting to me as well, to hear him mention the fact, like, I don't even have the Game 6 Finals ball. Like, I want this one. So I don't fault him for wanting the game ball after he set a franchise record at all. Like, I've seen some, no, I'm here for Giannis getting the game ball after something like this. And there's a lot more to still discuss from this game, because, as mentioned, there were some differences in this game from the last two times we've seen the Pacers. I mean, one thing I saw in particular was how they were just trying to put more pressure on Tyrese Halliburton throughout this game. Full court pickup, trapping. We saw some Andre Jackson Jr. minutes, as Frank mentioned. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that as well after we talk a little bit more about our friends from Dave. At one time or another, everybody needs a little financial help. Sometimes the pockets are low and you need something just to help you get through until the next payday. And that's exactly why Dave is great. Dave can get you cash when you need a hand in between paychecks, and it can help you build credit by settling the extra cash TM advances on time. Dave is the banking app that's leveling up the financial playing field. When you download Dave, you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's all a part of Dave's extra cash TM account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. Extra cash TM gives you more money to buy groceries, fill your tank, get your car repaired, catch up on bills, without you having to wait for your next paycheck. I mean, you can even build your credit while you're settling up on time. There are millions of people who have already downloaded the Dave app to make their finances easier. So if you are in a pinch, get the help you need by downloading Dave. Download Dave today at dave.com/lockedonnba. Again, that's dave.com/lockedonnba. You could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. There's no credit check, no late fees. Again, download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/lockedonnba. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. All right, let's dig a little bit deeper into the game that we saw, the differences here, because I mentioned already, we saw them playing Halliburton a little bit differently in this game. We saw Andre Jackson Jr. get in the game with MarJon and really have some key bench minutes. Like, they really inserted a lot of energy into this game for the Milwaukee Bucks. Andre Jackson Jr.'s plus minus at one point in the game was at plus 15, but then we had the whole garbage time and Pacers coming back thing, and that just kind of trashed that. So that's not really taking a look at what he did while the game was really in balance, but a pretty good performance from Andre. Even though he had 4 fouls pretty quickly in quick order, he was still able to make an impact in this game. And something else that stood out to me was looking at points in the paint and the 3-point percentages across the 3 games we played against the Pacers, because in the first matchup, the Bucks killed the Pacers in the paint. They had a plus 20 advantage there, but The Pacers were just shooting lights out from three in that first loss against them. So that kind of balanced that out. Second game, the in-season tournament semifinal game. Bucks got killed in the paint. Pacers had 72. The Bucks had 60. In the three-point shooting, the Bucks were able to have 5 more threes made in that game than the Pacers, which, again, kept them kind of close. But tonight, it was complete dominance from the Bucks in the paint. They had 70 points in the paint. Indiana only had 56. And neither team really shot the ball all that well from three. The Bucks were 7-27 from the field, 26%. The Pacers were 11 from 36 from the field. And I was like, that's pretty significant for this game here. I mean, a large part of it, you already called out what Giannis was able to do himself in the paint. So when you look at those numbers, it's one of those things where you're like, I see how this game turned out a little bit different than the last two meetings.
Yeah, and I mean, it's nice. It felt like there was that, like the period right before the Bucks went to Vegas, right? They hit 23 threes against the Knicks. Like they had a few games where they really just got super hot from 3-point range. And, like we said at that point, right? Like, I mean, the point of the game is to put the ball in the hoop. So you just have to enjoy it and celebrate it when your team hits a bunch of shots. The flip side is, right, that when you think about, okay, from a sustainability perspective, is that a way that you're going to win night in and night out in the league when, you have to hit 23s to win by 5 or something? Like, no, that's not really like the way that you're typically going to win games. And so, I always enjoy these games where you shoot really poorly from three and you win anyway, because I think it shows that you're doing other stuff well. Obviously, part of it was Indiana also didn't have a great night from 3-point range, but they were better than the Bucks. And, interestingly, I think by far the worst game that the Pacers had from three, and of these three, was in Vegas. And in that case, it didn't matter for the reasons that you mentioned, right? They got out in transition, offensive rebounds, et cetera. And I think when you look at this game, and again, like whatever, the glasses are overflowing on a night when Giannis scores 64 and you win by double digits. But offensive rebounding was again a problem tonight. But looking at the half court and transition numbers tonight, Indiana, for their initial play in half court, 83 points per 100 possessions or per 100 plays. That's phenomenal, especially against this Indiana team that can obviously score in transition or in the half court, especially with what Tyrese can do as a pick and roll guy. I thought, it was interesting. The Bucks put Giannis on Miles Turner, especially to start the game and for extended stretches. And I thought that was an interesting wrinkle because, we saw obviously that when Brook is defending Miles Turner, he has to defend out to the 3-point line. And the other piece too is that they love running the pick and roll, obviously, between those two guys. And so Brook obviously playing the deep drop, you can't switch him on to Halliburton. And, you're kind of just sitting back waiting. And he's so good at those little floaters, glassers, et cetera. So I thought that was a nice wrinkle from the Bucks to put Giannis on Turner for extended periods in tonight's game. I mean, you're not really worried about Miles Turner like bullying anybody in the post or something like that anyway. So it gives them a little bit of optionality to switch, put Giannis on Halliburton, which again, like, Halliburton's going to get to his spots against pretty much anybody. So you just have to try to keep him away from the basket. We saw Giannis did block him once when Tyrese drove to the hoop. We saw another play where there was a switch in the back, in kind of like on the far wing. And I think Chris was able to then jump a passing lane for the first turnover of the game. And so, I mean, you look at Halliburton's numbers, right? 22 points, 7 assists, 3 turnovers. Hallelujah, right? Like that's like pitching a perfect game against Tyrese Halliburton in the year 2023. So I think, kudos to the Bucks. I think they changed some things up. Obviously they put the young guys on him, just give him some different looks. And that's all you can do is just give him different looks. The Bucks obviously do not have a Tyrese Halliburton stopper. They went to the zone at times. So again, they kind of did what they could. And the results obviously were way better than we saw last game. So yeah, I thought that was definitely, a positive. And you mentioned Andre. It's sort of an interesting with Andre. Like if you look at like his plus minus numbers, like there's not a lot of like evidence you would look at and say like, oh, he's like really helping you when he's on the floor. But I do think that there is something about just the energy differential, like when he comes into games, the fact that his size, he can defend small. I thought when he first came in, I think he was defending TJ McConnell and caused McConnell some problems. And McConnell got back and I think drove on him, got a layup at one point. Tyrese had the dunk on him. So again, it's not like he's coming there and being a world beater and, snuffing everything out defensively, but you do just detect an energy differential. And I think I just want to see more of him. Right. And I don't know that, I don't think he's going to play 25 minutes a game at this point, because he's going to foul out probably if he plays that many minutes. But I think he's especially right now, that's the kind of question we've been asking with Pat and Jay Crowder out. Like, can you really not find time for Andre Jackson, given the rest of the firepower on this team and the lack of defensive depth that you have on the wing? It just feels like there's a role for this guy. And so I almost like, obviously I love numbers. I like using kind of the metrics to try to figure out like what's real, what's not, balance that with the eye test. He's one of those guys that even if you're looking at like the most advanced metrics, like they don't really, especially as a rookie here, tell much of a story. But it just feels like, again, when he gets into a game, it can kind of change the tempo a bit. And the other piece too is just, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yep.
They need defense in the playoffs, right? They're not winning four rounds, closing games with Malik Beasley, Dame Lillard, and Chris as their 1 through 3 defenders. Like, I just don't see that happening. I think they're going to need some different looks that they can throw out there. And again, is rookie Andre Jackson going to be the guy closing games in the NBA Finals? Like, yeah, probably not. But you got to try some stuff here, because I think defensively, I think it's been long enough, for 23 games in a season. It's over a quarter of the season. We've seen some improvement, but I think fundamentally, like, the personnel just isn't there defensively. And so I think you just have to give these guys some looks, especially Andre, to a lesser extent Marjan, because you just hope that something starts to click with them, and at least they could be guys that might be part of the solution there, in addition to potential trades. So so that was a welcome sign. And again, hopefully Pat, Jay are back sooner rather than later, especially Pat. But in the meantime, let's see what Andre can do.
I'm definitely with that. I tweeted about that during the game, just mentioning the fact, like, I know he's young and I know he makes some mistakes, but it seems like every time he gets in the game, I like what I see. And so I'm with you on that. And up next for the Bucks, we have the Detroit Pistons coming to town on Saturday. They just lost their 21st straight game tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers. They play Philly again in Philly on Friday before they'd come to Milwaukee on Saturday. So hopefully, if Philly beats them on Friday, Milwaukee is not that first win for the Pistons. You don't want to be that team that gives up that distinction of being the team the Pistons broke their losing streak against. So that's coming up this weekend for the Bucks. That's the next game. They get a couple of days off in between time. And that'll do it for us here today. Let us know in the comments on YouTube what your favorite part of Giannis's performance was from tonight. Let's have a Giannis love fest in the YouTube comments for a bit, because I mentioned it. I think the man should really be getting some stronger looks for MVP consideration. Also, make sure that you go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Locked On Sports Today comes through with 24/7 coverage of the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On. So go on ahead and check that out after we close here. So for Frank and myself, we'll catch you later.